Hello and welcome to this tutorial. I'm Bob Rose. This is the tutorial on Jester's Gigue from ABRSM Grade 5. This is 2023-2024. This is a fun piece. I wouldn't say it's a perfect piece, but it's fun. I think this is quite a popular piece, and thank you very much to the people who watched my performance on YouTube where I said, oh, there's going to be a tutorial coming soon, and months later, finally, here it is. So thank you for your patience. So to get straight to it, straight away, someone did mention, and by the way, there's going to be a link above, link below in the description to my performance. Someone mentioned, why do I play all staccato when it doesn't say that in the score, when the score says... So basically, I'm going to try and keep this reasonably short, but it brings up sort of quite a wider discussion about classical music. And what is classical music? Is it basically when a composer makes a piece, are we obliged to write it exactly as the composer wrote it? Or can we do what we want with it? Now, this is a huge topic, and there's like debate on both sides. For me personally, and for a lot of people, once the composer has composed the piece, it's out in the world. It doesn't belong to the composer anymore. You can do what you want with it. And actually, if you do look at the ABRSM website and you look at their marking criteria, they do say that you have a lot of freedom. You don't have to do the dynamics, you don't have to do the articulations, you don't have to do the tempos, but whatever you do must be in the character of that style of music. So I think there's freedom here. Now, so, you know, although we're taking an exam and we get marks, in my opinion, you have to get out of your head that we are doing this to be correct, that we are being judged, and that it's going to be correct or incorrect, that it's right or it's wrong. This is not what music is about. You know, don't get me started on all of this. My podcast is very good for wider discussions about these kinds of things. My podcast is the same name as my YouTube channel. It's Heart of the Piano. You can go to heartofthepiano.com, or you can go to Spotify and Apple. Anyway, back to this. So basically, like at grade 5, I don't think many people will be able to play at that staccato. You know, that's difficult. And so, you know, I'm a bit self-indulgent. When I make performance videos and put them up on YouTube, yes, I'm a little self-indulgent in that I'm looking for the most lovable way of playing it, which isn't necessarily going to be the way that most people are going to be able to play it at that level. But what I want to do, because this is the thing, when you listen to the official ABRSM recordings and you watch a lot of like the videos that people put up, in a way it's a bit patronizing. You know, they're a bit like, oh, let me hold your hand and let me show you the kind of thing that's achievable. So let's play it slowly in the kind of way that a grade 5 person might play it. Now, yeah, you know, there's a place for that. You know, people are showing you the achievable things that you can do. I feel like I want to do something a little bit different with my role. My role is to show you what's possible, hopefully to inspire you. So... So it's been a few months since I did this. And the way I'm playing it is quite a bit above grade 5, which is why I'm not playing it instantly perfectly the first time. But, you know, I want to inspire you. I want to inspire you and play it in a way that sort of makes you go, wow. And then if you can't quite get there, that's okay. That's fine, you know. So anyway, why do I play it staccato? It's quite interesting because the very first time that I played this, I didn't hear much of the Baroque influences, although there are really strong Baroque influences. So down at the bottom, you've got this bump that tells you that this composer, Chee, and sorry if I'm pronouncing her name wrong, clearly had a particular piece in mind, the Gigue that ends Bach's French Suite No. 5. Now, you know, it really sounds like that. But when I first listened to this, I actually heard something completely different. I spent some time living in Mexico And there's a super famous classical piece of music called the Huapango, the Moncayo Huapango, I think it is. And anyone who's vaguely familiar with that piece, when I play this piece in this staccato way, knows that there's almost like Mexican folk music influence to this whole thing. And, you know, I think it's quite interesting because this composer is Malaysian in origin and spent a lot of time living in the USA, living in America. And, you know, when I lived in Mexico, I hadn't had much experience, much exposure to Mexican music and Mexican classical music. I've had some exposure to American classical music, and I was completely shocked at just how similar American classical music is to Mexican classical music, where American classical music clearly copied and stole from Mexican classical music. And I'm going to say stole because it's more than just influenced by, it's like, to me, what sounds like nationalistic American music like Copland is so Mexican. It really is. It's just like completely stolen and appropriated. So anyway, don't get me started on that. But I think it's interesting because, you know, this composer, Chee spent a lot of time in the USA. And, you know, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that this has quite a lot of, to me, American influence. You know, it's like something between the Moncayo Huapango and like bluegrass. I think the giveaway, the thing that makes this different from the Bach French suite, are these accents on beat 2 and 4. That is, to me, clearly like an American folk influence, and particularly kind of Mexican. So I'm going to leave a link below to the Huapango, and you can have a listen and you know, see for yourself. And when you listen to the Huapango, it really, like, to me, it has this very staccato. So anyway, this is why I play it that way, because it reminded me of that. It really strongly reminded me of the feeling of that. But then, you know, in Baroque music, if you play Bach, I personally don't like Bach that's all just played legato. I like the Gould style of playing Bach, which is very, and in fact, you know, for a lot of my teenage years, I just thought I did not like Bach at all. I didn't like Bach until I heard Glenn Gould and heard, oh, you can play it all like that, and then it just immediately came to life for me. Anyway, so that's a very long-winded sort of way of sort of justifying why I'm playing the staccato, although really the only justification needs to be I just like it that way. I just like to hear it that way. Anyway, in many ways, it's quite a straightforward piece. There's really not a lot to it. If you just play the notes and the accents and all the markings, you're going to do reasonably well. I mean, it does say with energetic flamboyance as well. You know, you want to look. I think when it says flamboyance, can you just make something flamboyant purely by the sound? I don't think so. I think you have to have visual flair as well. You've got to have some showmanship. And it is interesting that in the newish performance exams that you do online, you do get a lot of marks for the way that you perform. And for me, this is stagecraft, this is showmanship. So for example, you know, these are things like before you start, you don't just immediately go, you know, like you do the thing that most professionals do, which is you sit, you gather yourself, you build tension. It's like you sit here, and how much tension can you build before you start? You know, rather than what most of my students do, which is just launch straight in. You know, you're creating an event. And I'll come to the ending as well, because like how you begin and how you end something is like really huge. Another thing that you can do is I think something that a lot of my students do is they play in a very casual manner. So like you don't want to play with rounded shoulders and like you're just very casual like this, you know. You know, this is energetic flamboyance. You want to look like you're full of energy. So to me, this is something like, as opposed to, and they both probably sound exactly the same, but I look completely different and my energy is completely different. So, you know, these are easy marks that you can get for the performance exam, like just how you come across this kind of thing. Anyhow, so although I've said it's fairly straightforward, it's not straightforward to have evenness, especially if you play this fast. And if you're going to play it not staccato, and I'm not going to show you how to play it staccato, because if it's not something that you know how to do, I think grade 5 is a bit ambitious. But you can play it legato with a lot of life. And yeah, I'm a bit rusty on it. Now, as opposed to, because it just works better a little bit faster. So, you know, I like it. It says the tempo marking is 112 to 132. It works really well at the 132 end. And the number one way that I recommend to learn this and get this all under your fingers so that it feels easy. I did notice in the YouTube comments to my performance that a few people have some challenges with this. It's really easy if you practice it like this. Now, some of you who may have watched some of my other YouTube videos, tutorials, may have noticed that I do a technique called shifting accents. This just makes it so easy. So what you do is you do it in groups of 2, in groups of 3, in groups of 4, and you keep shifting the accents. So I'll show you how this works. And you do it in sort of short bits. So, you know, in the beginning, no more than 1 bar, maybe even half a bar, but I'm going to demonstrate it just with the first bar. So what we can do is we can take the first bar and group it into groups of 2, where we go 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. And what I'm doing is the 1 is super loud and the 2 is super quiet. And you must exaggerate these. And all the loud ones are equally loud and all the quiet ones are equally quiet. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. And then we can loop it again. 1, back to the beginning of the bar. 1, 2, 1, 2. So very quickly, I'm going to just go through some of the pitfalls that people come across. The first one is that people get impatient. They try and do it too fast, and then they don't exaggerate the loud and quiet. So what they might do is they might start off loud and quiet, but then very quickly, everything just becomes the same level, even if they think it isn't. So they might start 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, and then as you can hear, everything just becomes the same level. Don't do that. There's no point doing that. The whole point is to make it really loud and really quiet. It is difficult. Everybody struggles with this when they first start to do this, and it's difficult for sometimes months, but it's the most useful practicing technique, because almost immediately, if you practice like this for a few days, you'll just be able to go. It's just going to be that easy. But you know, this is one of those things that I show it to my students. My students go, wow, that's amazing. I can see that really works. And then the following week I say to them, so how did your shifting accent practice go? They go, I didn't do any. Because it's difficult and no one ever feels like this is what they want to do in their practice time. But you know, I'm lazy. I'm fundamentally lazy and I want to spend as little time as possible practicing. And I guarantee you that if you do short chunks of this every day, and by the way, don't do more than about 10 or 15 minutes of this a day, because this is the only practice I do which is unmusical. It's just technical. You know, you don't want to do too much of this, just 10 or 15 minutes. But if you do this, you will so quickly learn it. And then you're not going to be sitting there endlessly trying to get this under your fingers. So what are some of the other challenges that people have? Going to the loud ones, people can rush them so that they can go 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, because the loud ones, obviously you have to move your finger a bit quicker. Keep it absolutely in time. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, like that. So, what are some of the other challenges that people have? I think that's mostly it. I mean, you know, also just impatience mainly. So then we shift the twos so that we start on 2. And we're still playing exactly the same notes. I'm starting in the same place. I'm not missing any notes out. But instead of starting on 1, I'm starting on 2, and the 2 is quiet. So we go 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, loop 2, 1, 2, 1. So now the notes that were quiet are now loud, and the notes that were loud are now quiet. And this means that all your fingers and all the notes take it in turns to have an accent on them. Then we can do it in 3s. The first groups of 3 is a bit boring because it's already grouped like that. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. So that's boring. Don't spend too long on that one. Then you shift it and then start with the 3, which is quiet. You go 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. By the way, I should have said this at the beginning, but every time you watch one of my videos, always have the book open in front of you so that you follow everything that I'm saying. So then we shift it to the 2, starting on the 2, which is quiet, and you go 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, and then you loop it back. And you know, you want this really even, that all the quiet ones are super quiet. Make sure you really do go super quiet, and all the loud ones are equally loud. Something I was going to say is I think the reason why my students really find this difficult and struggle and find it very challenging is it really exposes 2 of the most common weaknesses in all of my students. And the first one is counting. Everyone hates counting. And really, you know, you want to be able to count the beats of anything that you play. So this is in 12/16, this piece, which for me means that it's in 4. You count 1, 2, 3, 4 in each bar. And at some point, you want to be able to count 1, 2, 3, 4, and up to speed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. This is just something that, in my opinion, everyone needs to do at some point. Once you can do it, you don't keep on doing it. Then you just go back and playing it normally, because you can probably hear that counting somewhere in your mind. And when I'm playing, it's a habit that somewhere deep at the back of my mind, very quietly, is like a 1, 2, 3, 4. It's like every good musician does this, but I think most of my students haven't internalized that habit yet. Every professional does this, I guarantee it. So that's a weakness, the counting. And when you do these shifting accents, and let's say I move on to the 4s, so I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, back to the beginning, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And you know, how easy is it to count to 4? 1, 2, 3, 4. And it's so easy that when I'm doing this, I'm not even really thinking about the numbers. It's more like my mouth. It's like my mouth, my tongue and my mouth and my vocal cords have their own muscle memory of just 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. I don't even need to think about it. But I think most of my students, they go 1, 2, and there's all this thinking. And, you know, this is why it's useful, because as musicians, we need to learn how to count effortlessly, because counting is underneath everything that we do. And if you're just playing and you're not aware where all the beats are, and it all just sort of tumbles along, that's a massive weakness. So basically, number one weakness in my students counting. Shifting accents forces you to count. This is good because it is more difficult. But once you can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Or let me go to another one, which is way more difficult if I start on 4. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Again, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, you can probably tell when I do that, I'm using very little of my brain to do that. It's something that becomes automated. This is important that you guys learn how to sort of count in a way that takes less brain space. And the only way you learn to do that is by starting going 1, 2, 3. in a way that feels frustrating, but you'll get there because your brain does not enjoy working hard, and the brain looks for shortcuts and how to make everything feel easier. So that's one of the reasons. The other reason, what's the other reason? Oh yes, the other reason is that when you do this, it's another one of most of my students' weakest thing, which is reading music. And when you're doing all the shifting accents, you have to actually read the notes quite closely, and you have to follow the notes, because otherwise you go, what's the next note? It doesn't matter if you can just play normally. And then we do shifting accents with 4 starting on 2, and you go 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. Well, you're going to have to start reading the notes again, otherwise it's too difficult. And yeah, for a lot of people that's frustrating, but that's why you need to do it, because the fact that you are reading the notes and counting will mean that very, very quickly you will know this. You will absolutely know this. You know, I can't emphasize enough how much this is going to help you. Anyway, I've spent a huge amount of time on shifting accents. Really, I need to make its own video on that kind of thing. And then in bar 4, normally I don't recommend doing shifting accents with 2 hands together, but here you can, in bar 4, you can go 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and then shift that to 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, and so on and so on. And because that bar 4 is quite tricky, I found that to be the hardest bar. So yeah, there's that. And then once you learn the whole piece using these shifting accents, I guarantee you it's laughably easy, But you know, you have to do the shifting accents if you want it to feel that easy and even, because there's a lot of, you know, bits here that it's going to be tricky to make it even. Anyway, hopefully I've convinced you enough. Now, another tricky thing is the second page. You've got these moments where it says sopra. Sopra, again, apologies for my terrible Italian accent. Sopra means over, and these are things that you play with the right hand. So I'm going to guess that some of you are probably going to have some frustrations with that. And I'm going to guess that the reason why, something that's very common in my students, is to be staring at the keys and staring at their hand and their fingers as they play a note. Now, the trick to playing all of these sopra notes is to look in advance and then to not look at the moment that you actually play it. So the moment that I've played in bar 15, the moment I've played the B in my right hand, which is the first note of the right hand, I'm already looking for where the bottom G is, where my right hand goes. So I'm already thinking about it. And then just before I play it, I then start looking for the high G of where I'm about to go to next in the right hand. So before I play, I'm already looking for the note above. And then, so what I'm doing, I'm looking at the sheet music. I look down, I look up, I look back at the sheet music, I look down, I look up, I look at the sheet music, I look down. And you might want to practice this very slowly, choreographing where your eyes are moving. Because if you let your eyes just get yanked to these notes that you jump to and you stay staring at them, that's if you listen to some of my podcast episodes, this can be very left-brained in the sense that your attention can kind of get glued in a very unhealthy way, that the mind can be very sticky, that when you're thinking really hard, let me just move my microphone, that when you're thinking really hard, I need to get this note, and you stare at it, the mind is just built this way that if you're looking at it, the moment that you've played it, the eyes are still going to stare at it, and it's very hard to tear yourself away. And then you'll find that under pressure, like when you're recording it or playing in an exam, you'll just fall to pieces, because this is just the nature of our minds. So you want to practice, look ahead, look up, find out the next note. It's there. Look up. Look there. You know, and so on and so on. Really get out of the habit of staring at any note at the moment that you're playing it. So if you watch my YouTube performance, again, there's a link below in the description. If you watch my YouTube performance, there's like, it's done synthesia style. So you see all the notes falling from above. And this really is in many ways what it feels like when I am performing anything, whether it's from the sheet music or whatever. When I'm playing this, I know that there's going to be some notes coming up that I need to reach to. And if you watch that synthesia performance and imagine what it feels like to be playing, you see, oh, you can see well in advance there's going to be some notes coming up, and you know they're coming, and you can take your time. So if I play really slowly, it looks like this. And here, I can take my time. So I start moving, and there's plenty of time. Now, I think what a lot of people will do is they'll go and then go, wow, and then panic right at the last minute. You've got loads of time. If you're already thinking about that bottom G now, move, and then move. You've got so much time, but you have to be a little bit in the future. You've got to be like the synthesia. You've got to know that these things are coming up. So don't just be like in a narrow focused panic. This note, wow, this note, wow, this note. It's way too difficult. Something else that I've changed is at the end, we've got this fortissimo, and then it says that the very last note should be accented and staccato. I don't like the sound of this. I'm going to go from bar 25. That doesn't sound right to me. So what I suggest is that the last note, I just make it a semiquaver, or what are they called in American speak? That would be like a 16th note, I think. Yeah, just a 16th note, a semiquaver. Basically, semiquaver, 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 and then off. And you can accent it, but I wouldn't make it staccato. And you want to finish this with a flourish, but also with some tension. The tension is like, builds up the fact that you're expecting some applause. So we can go. And so for me, what this is like is I go down on the final semiquaver, or as it's written here, a quaver, or eighth note, down, up. And the up can have a really big flourish to it. So if I go, and you can, I'll do another video on, you know, how to do theatrical flourishes and stuff. But what you don't want to do is just sort of be hunched over, very casual, and just go, which is what a lot of my students do. And no. You know, do you feel like this is an amazing thing to watch if I do this? or is this better? You know, like it's not perfect, but that's much more likely to get a round of applause. So a couple of other very quick things. I suggest some fingering changes. Bar 5, I think, works better. 1, 2, 3, and then 2, 1, 3, 5, 4, 3, 2. And then bar 9, I think, works better. 1, 4, 3, 1, 3, 2, 4. Or you can finish on a 3 if you want, but I just think it makes it a little bit trickier to get down to the next note. So experiment with that. At the end of bar 11, I like 1, 3, 2, so that the thumb helps to bring out that accent. I don't remember what was there originally. In bar 3, in the right hand, I've put 3, 2, 1, 3. Yeah, I think that's, you know, pretty much mostly it. Do make sure that you pay attention to the dynamics in this piece. Have fun with it. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. So if the tutorial was useful for you, please do like and subscribe, leave comments. This helps me to grow the channel. I've just bought a brand new expensive microphone to help me with all of this stuff. It costs me money, takes me time. It's so much more worth it when you guys help me to grow the channel. And I like helping people. And the more that you can support the channel, the more people that I can help with these tutorials. So yeah, if you've got any questions, any comments, do leave comments and stuff. Thank you very much for tuning in. Go do some practice, go do all the things I recommended. Make sure you do those shifting accents. And good luck, and see you for the next one. Take care. Bye.